You're listening to or watching What's the Tea? My name is Lydia.
And my name's Andy.
So we are basically two former support workers that basically chat over normally a cuppa. Not today. But we talk about life, adulting, some key topics. However, we are definitely not experts in what we talk about.
No, not at all. Today, we're going to do things a little bit different in that this is our season finale. As part of our season finale, we figured we'd bring in some special guests.
Ooh.
So we're going to cut this for a moment, and we'll introduce you to Simon and Gav, our joint chief executives, who we're going to be interviewing.
Our joint CEOs, welcome to What's the Tea podcast.
Lovely to be here.
How have you found the podcast? Have you been watching the podcast?
I've watched one, but I think the others were blocked because there was some kind of adult content, and it was locked away behind a content filter. So,
what were you watching? Because this definitely wasn't our podcast. So we've got some questions to ask you. So we are going to be interviewing you both, which is quite nice because normally you do a lot of the interviewing. So it's nice that it's going to be switching it over.
Yeah.
They, Si was on my interview panel.
Was he?
Yeah, he was. He was the nicer one out of the two.
That's true.
I know.
who was the other one?
You know. Jeremy. Who is my line manager for those at home that don't.
We love you, Jeremy.
Bit much.
Hi, Jeremy.
So we've got a load of questions that some of the staff have asked us to ask you, as well as some of our current residents and ex-residents. So don't hate us for the questions, because we didn't pick them.
Yeah, it's not our fault. If any of these questions are terrible, they come from someone else.
I assume you've not filtered them in any way.
No.
Oh, good.
Unfortunately, they're not that bad.
Yeah, I'm going to add something.
Oh, that's good. So any terrible ones, Lydia is at fault. So first question. You're both CEO?
How does that work? They don't know. Great stuff.
It's a really good question, and it's one that's flummoxed many people, as we found. We've been doing this for 8 years now, and when we started, actually, there was 3 of us. Aaron was with us, and we had this kind of like 3-person leadership team, and literally no one could get their head around that at all. When Aaron started his construction firm and moved on, and we decided to do it as a 2, it would appear that 2 was easier to understand than 3.
Okay.
You know, which is, I guess, understandable because it's a slightly smaller number. I don't know, but I guess
That's the only reason.
Yeah. So we get a lot of like, oh, do you both work part-time? Do you both work, but no, that's a full-time job for both of us, believe it or not. It's a different model, isn't it? We think that it provides more accountability, it provides more support for each other. One of us can go on holiday and turn their phone off and know that the other one is kind of looking after the YMCA, and that responsibility doesn't fall on someone who, it isn't their job to look after the YMCA, which is ours. And actually, I think it's helped us create this much flatter model of an organisation where everyone knows each other just a little bit better, and there isn't this one kind of figurehead type person that everyone doesn't like to sit next to at fellowship lunch,
It's just 2 now that people don't like to sit next to. I know, I got the short straw. Yeah.
There's reasons why I sat here.
Yeah, thanks for that. So how does that work if you don't agree on something? Because obviously, if you're the CEO,
gladiators.
Yes.
Yeah, we get those back.
You just knock each other out.
So that's what I heard the other night. Okay.
Yeah, but I guess when it's one person, you don't have anyone to kind of disagree with because it's you're running the ship, so to speak. Yeah. But when there's 2 of you, we obviously don't think the same all the time.
No, most of the time we don't. Yeah. So when we first started this role moving forward, we tried ages to write down a protocol on decision making, and then we realised no matter how many protocols you have, if you haven't got relationship first and foremost, you can't make good decisions or challenge each other really well. So firstly, we focused in on building that relationship, so we made sure we worked together for a full day every week, We always eat lunch together on that day.
It's
it's
like a little
cute.
date
No,
day.
It is, yeah,
Date
candle.
night.
There's no wine because it's hours at work. But,
There's candles.
and people joke and
Rose
say,
petals.
well, all right, it's getting a bit weird now.
All right.
But people do occasionally liken it to a marriage, and it's not a marriage. But in the same way that you disagree with a partner at home,
Yeah.
you then both see each other's kind of point of view, and then come to some sort of middle ground. And I think that any good work relationship, I've had this with the people that report to me before, it's actually better if you have a really strong relationship, because then challenge doesn't come across so harsh. It actually comes across as this needs sorting out because it's going to make the whole place better.
Yeah.
So relationship is the key, really.
So I had marriage counselling as the answer.
So you know how we have, we have clinical supervisions. Clinical supervision is where we see someone externally once a month, so we can rant and talk about stuff about work, stuff that we're having to deal with at work. Do you have one for the both of you for marriage counselling then?
No, we have each other to do that exact thing, because we have, whilst we oversee all three of the organisations, we focus in on slightly different areas most of the time. So then, mostly when you've annoyed Si, he can rant at me, Lydia.
That's true.
Vice versa.
I do the same. When Si annoys me, I go to Jeremy.
So what do you actually do?
So
I enjoyed
when we
that.
started 8 years ago, the organisation was a fantastic organisation. It was a lot smaller than it is now, obviously, and there was lots of challenges, particularly around kind of cuts to funding, and when cuts to funding come in, what that can do sometimes is can force a charity or any organisation to be tempted to change what it does. We did a couple of videos, I think, in the first year for the whole staff team that kind of explained why we needed to really ensure that that didn't happen. So, really felt God's given us this mission, God's called us to a particular type of work to help a particular kind of cohort of people, if you like, and we didn't really feel that was changed, didn't really feel that God was saying, oh no, stop that now and go and do something easier or different. But of course the money wasn't there. So our job was to go, no, this is what God's called us to do, and we will find a way to fund making that happen. And I think really the biggest challenge over the last 8 years was making that happen, really. So like, how do you create income, generate that kind of resource that you need to run an operation like this and do it really, really well, without compromising any of your ideals, be that your Christian faith, the Christian mission of the organisation, or delivering that excellent care to the young people, and just meeting even the additional needs that then come in, because we've actually expanded our offer and what we do. And so it's our job to work out how you do that, and then set a strategy, and then make that strategy happen. So I guess that is what we do.
Yeah, fair enough. So you mentioned that you kept saying 8 years ago, but you both didn't start at the Y 8 years ago. So how long have you been working for the Y, and how did you come to join the YMCA?
And was it before or after the Dark Ages?
Yeah.
I was definitely after the Dark Ages.
Were you here when it was founded, Si? In the 1800s?
I saw this place's 10th birthday.
Not from 1846.
Not from
So yeah, how long have you been working at the Y, and why did you join, or how did you come to join the YMCA?
I came to the Y, it'd be 15 years this year, and I'd recently become a Christian. I was working in hotel management, and basically my wife came to Exeter to do a gap year for a church, and I wanted to chase her effectively. She wasn't my wife at the time, and she said, have you ever thought about working for a charity? And I said, no way. But then a job came up at the Y, which was a couple of days a week helping residents into employment.
Okay.
Well, I've ran a recruitment agency before. I've also done HR in the hotel and managed many people. I think I could probably do that job. It'll get me to Exeter, and then I'll find a real job. And that was 15 years ago.
Have you managed to find that real job?
No. So I got to the Y the day I started. The job became full time. And it captivated me, the way I could kind of work out my faith in a practical way day to day, and also felt like I was giving back. I'd spent my previous 8 years of work taking money from very rich people and being yes sir, no sir.
Yeah.
And it didn't feel like I was making any impact really, other than giving them a lovely holiday.
Mm.
And then I'd suddenly been thrown into a world where I was meeting people that didn't have a great upbringing or had needs, and I could help meet some of those needs. And I could also use my own experience of not having any GCSEs and leaving school at 15 and going straight to work as a kind of an aspiration for some of the young people to go, actually, it doesn't matter, you haven't got any qualifications. We can still get you to work and you can find a real great job. So I just loved it, and it kind of caught me, and I've been here ever since.
Nice.
Amazing.
Si?
How long have we got?
I can edit it down.
Yeah. So I have been here 23 years this month. In fact, I think this week, possibly
Today.
Woo, happy birthday!
But yeah,
23
so I started
years.
February 2002.
Mm.
Yes, quite a long time. Before that, I was in social work, so I worked as a residential social worker, so worked in various different children's homes mostly, and I'm what they used to call the intervention team, so I was that person that kind of went in and assessed families and, removed children into care if that was the requirement, and stuff like that. And I worked in young offenders institutes, and I did that for about 4 years. It was intensive, and I'd come out into that because I'd started actually in youth work. So I started off with Youth for Christ as a kind of youth worker, and the more you do that and the more you do detached work, you get further and further back into a problem. You meet young people in a youth work setting, and then you hear about what's going on at home, and then you realise you haven't really got a way of helping them in those situations back at home. It's great. We can spend some time together here on this Friday night or on the street doing detached youth work, but then you're going to go back to your home family situation. And I think at that time I really felt that's what I wanted to get into. I wanted to help over there, so that's why I went into social work. But I went in at quite a young age, so in fact I started before I was 21, and you have to be 21 to go into social services. I guess that's still the case now.
Okay.
This was in the 1990s, so it's quite a long time ago. And yeah, worked in lots of different places. I worked with people that you could have read about on the news, and stuff like that, and so it was quite intense.
Yeah.
And I think after about 4 years I'd had enough, just kind of mentally. So I actually had a bit of a time where I needed to just recover mentally. I think it's important to talk about that because
Totally.
a lot of people suddenly often think, oh yeah, people have this kind of like perfect life, and
they've got no real like problems or no struggle. I get that.
So I had quite a period of kind of recovery through that, which took quite a long time, and so I had lots of jobs, just trying to step back into working again, and then I was working for the Diocese of Exeter, so we worked on a bit of setting up a youth organisation, and then someone passed me this advert for this job that closed like in a few days, and it was the worst job advert ever. Actually, it was just like YMCA or City of Exeter YMCA at that point it was, and
where was the advert?
it was in the Express and Echo.
Oh, wow.
So we chopped it out,
One of those-
Express and Echo.
one of those things
Passed
in
it
a
across to me.
newspaper.
It was like a proper old school job advert in a newspaper, clipping passed over to you.
I still have it in a box.
Do you actually need to frame it?
And how did you apply for that job?
How did I apply for that?
Yeah. Did you have to write?
Was it carrot pigeon?
Yes.
Back in the day, we had these things called pens.
What?
Paper. And we, and yeah, actually, it was great. I had this interview with Mike Brookin and a guy called Paul Brooks, if he's watching this podcast, and the chairman of the board at that time, which I think was Brian Lofts. And I thought the interview went really well, and then I left the interview, and then I realised that I'd forgotten my mobile phone. Because mobile phones existed in those.
Were those ones with they had to like wind up or like pull the big antennae out?
Yeah, with a big battery.
Yeah, briefcase.
I put it under my chair. And
This could be classed as workplace bullying,
It's banter. We're bonding.
Anyway, I had that embarrassing moment when I'd left my phone under the chair. So after leaving the interview thinking, that went well, I had to then drive back and be like, left my phone under the chair, can I get my phone back? But it was a good job, because when I went back, they decided to offer me the job there.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
And that was 23 years ago. And so it's been really fun just being part of the organisation all the way through that. But
So what was the position you started off as then?
it was assistant housing manager, but there was a lot of assistant housing manager. There was one housing manager and there was like 4 assistant housing managers, and that was pretty much, and an administrator, and that was pretty much the entire staff team.
Wow.
At that point, and we had one computer, and it was a Mac, and it just ran the accounts.
Wow.
Did you have to get like a wire to like put it across to put it in the dial-up internet? Or did you not have internet then? Was it invented?
Internet was
I
invented.
actually don't know if there was an internet in the office because there was only one computer, so there was no network.
Oh yeah. Definitely no network.
How time has changed.
Yeah, look at that.
But I loved it. When we do our inductions, I like assistant housing manager is pretty much support worker. And I always think support worker is a terrible title, but we could find a better one that describes all the things that support workers do. That would be great, but we just can't find. I remember,
That's always been because we've done this, haven't we? Where it's like, what should support workers be called?
Yeah.
Because support worker, generally speaking, doesn't cover it.
No.
But if you use any other name, people go, well, what's that then?
Yeah.
And it's meaningless even more so.
Because there's just so many things that support workers do. Like, there's all this advocate, and I just found like it was incredible. And I joined the Y, and all of a sudden I could do, all these different things. I could go on this training course and learn all about welfare benefits, which I did, and then I managed to, become quite good at that. And then suddenly I was finding myself defending people in tribunals and in court, so I felt like a lawyer. Awesome. Or dressed up in a suit and defended.
Just to clarify, so it's not a lawyer and not pretending to be a lawyer.
And any advice that he gives cannot be taken as legal advice.
Absolutely, but and you can accomplish some incredible stuff as a support worker, like and it's just such a fantastic role. And I think that's continued. I think every role in the Y really has so much breadth to it, far more than the title usually gives.
Cool. Nice. Can I ask
a
different question before that one, if that's okay?
Yeah.
What's the one thing that you like about the YMCA as an organisation?
The one thing.
One thing. You can think,
Do I need to just
thing.
angle this towards because it feels like it's a point?
No, I can say it, that's fine. I'd definitely still say it's the faith basis, the Christian mission of what we do. I think it gives a grounding to the whole staff team in terms of we have one core shared value, which means that there's very little workplace falling out because we're all after one mission. So I think that is, for me, it's the key thing, and it's the one thing we have to hold on to. And many of the young people that have been through our services will know that we're not there to push Christianity on you, but we will give opportunity for people to explore it. And I think it's really important that we have that in today's society. It's really important.
So what's the one thing? You can't say what Gareth said. You can't say, I agree.
You cannot say what he said.
You have to say something different.
Ask me the question again.
What's the one thing that you like about the YMCA Exeter as
You
an
can say me,
organisation?
that's fine.
No. What do I like about it? Maybe it's just a little bit like what I just said, which is I think that you can come into this and see it as your vocation, and then within reason, I think God can kind of turn that role into like anything. So one of the things early on is in our support work we did this job club thing where we just thought, well, we got a whole bunch of guys actually, and they got to a point where really they could get back into work. How do we get them back into work? And we just started to cook bacon sandwiches and start working through a plan of aspirations, and that little like one morning a week turned into like a fully funded like national lottery citywide, and then other people came down and then stole the idea and turned it into themselves, and that was great, and so like you could just take one small little thing that God most surely probably put into your brain in the first place, and then put your effort into it and turn it into something incredible, and everyone in the organisation actually has the opportunity to do that, which I think is really great.
Nice.
I'm thinking let's skip to some of the heavy hitters.
Oh.
You're not going to do these ones? I like these ones.
What's your favourite colour?
Yeah.
What is
favourite colour?
All right. What is your favourite colour?
What's your favourite number?
Quick.
What's your star sign?
Favourite number? 22.
Oh, is it?
It was,
Same.
oh, really?
Yeah. There you go. Look at that.
A little bit disappointed it wasn't something more geeky, but never mind.
What do you mean more geeky?
42.
Why? What's special about
It's the
42?
answer to life, universe, everything. I'm cutting this bit out because
Oh.
it's terrible content.
I have no idea.
Hitchhiker's Guide to Galaxy.
Don't
Just
miss out.
go
Okay, go.
watch it,
Overwhelmed.
read it.
Okay, I
listen
will
to it.
do that, Andy.
No, you won't. Okay, so
We can mix it up. It's fine.
no, you obviously want to go the nicer route.
Yeah, I do.
Do we need to come back? Or?
I feel like we need to build them up with kind of this false sense of security, and then we hit them with the hard hitters.
Ooh.
What advice would you give your younger self?
I personally think that, I don't know, you look back on your life and you think, well, good and bad things happen, and all of those things contribute to where you are now. So
Yeah.
in one sense, I don't know that I would ever go back and tell myself to do something different if I was logical. The only thing and I tell my 2 younger daughters this, is that when they chose their options, I chose to do computing A-level. And then I just gave it up because it was too easy. I thought, this is really boring because it's really easy, and chose something else, which I then failed. And so actually, if you're right at something and it's easy, that's fine. Like, carry on studying it and get the qualification. I didn't think that through at the time.
That sounds
Oh.
very wise advice.
Yeah.
So mine would be reflective of my faith, actually. So
Okay.
it'd be, I didn't grow up in a Christian family, came to faith in my mid-20s. So to my younger self would be, don't write this off. Actually, I had a very negative view of church because of my experience of going to a Church of England school as a little kid and thinking it was really boring. So I had that kind of stereotypical Christians are weird, let's just avoid them kind of approach to life. But since becoming a Christian, I'm realising it's not about the religion side of things, it's about faith and a relationship with a God. My life has just been so different, and it's kind of changed for the better in so many ways. So, to go back and say, don't write this off, and maybe think about it at an earlier age.
Awesome.
Nice. Should we skip the next one?
Yeah.
Yeah. What are you most proud about in your time as joint CEOs?
Proud about? Wowzers.
This was the easier question.
These are easier questions,
Yeah.
okay. And there's loads to shout
That's
about.
been
That's the
quite
thing.
hard.
Is like there's like even over the past couple of years, really. Like, and I'll speak on behalf of what Si's achieved actually in terms of like fighting the Devon County Council cuts over the past couple of years. That wasn't a piece of work that just saved the YMCA. That impacted homelessness right the way across Devon for like another 8 organisations.
We were all cheering when we heard Si speak. We were like, yeah!
Like to see an organisation of our size speaking on that scale, advocating for other organisations is pretty huge.
Yeah.
And for me personally, it has just been like Si mentioned earlier about other organisations taking what we do and making it theirs. Like I've just really loved that approach over the past 10 years, really, of community projects, particularly where we've helped other places get youth work off the ground, and we've been advisory capacity, or we've brought in safeguard and oversight. But it's not been about us growing; it's been about community developing. The same with the job clubs. Like, I remember going down to Kingsbridge and helping them get a job club up and running, and one out in Exmouth, because it wasn't about us growing; it was about a great thing that we have that other people could replicate. So yeah, I'm really proud that we have that approach, and I think it's something we should hold dear to.
Yeah.
Nice.
Very good.
Proud. I think there's been loads of proud moments. I think Sidwell was a definite proud moment. I love that. That was that moment when you was like, wow, that's a kind of a huge achievement along the way. But I think also we set out this. I talked about strategic plan before. We set out this 7-year plan of how we were going to kind of get from where we were in this problem to get out of that problem. And what happened is that we looked back at one point every single year and realised that it literally happened exactly as that plan had set out. And initially we were like, we're so clever. And then there was this moment of going, oh my word, that was like God going, here's what you got to do.
Yeah.
Like, follow this. And I think that moment when you find and you really feel you're in the place where God wants you to be doing the thing that He wants you to be doing is like, that's
Yeah.
awesome like sense of peace. And so I think there was a moment there that I was like, proud that we managed to stick to that.
I think also a moment in there though, where we got a little bit carried away. We were like, we're overperforming in this year. This is great. We're actually ahead of the plan. And that was the COVID year. And it knocked us right back to where the plan was at in the first place. So,
For listeners and watchers at home, you mentioned Sidwell's and how it's a massive thing. What is Sidwell's?
Sidwell's is a block of 26 studio flats, Andy, that we created out of an abandoned warehouse in the middle of Exeter. Beautiful location, perfect, derelict, not being used, and we got to turn that empty, disused building into 26 homes for young people.
And it was done during 2020, so basically...
It was, kind of through 2019, through 2020, and it opened in the beginning of 2022.
So basically the height of COVID, height of social
pandemic.
isolation, social distancing, the whole lot.
Yes, it's
So-
tricky.
I just wanted to kind of highlight exactly what it was, because I think just to say Sidwell's kind of actually plays down all of that, because there was a lot more detail, and that's my attempt to be nice publicly.
No, I
You
was.
said you were going to say something.
Yeah, no, I think.
You know, coffee up.
I think, like, for those that don't know you, that are listening and watching, like, what I would say is I've known you guys for 8 years now, and I would just say, like, as joint CEOs, I think one of the things that you're amazing at is you're visionaries. And I think I remember you talked about this plan, and I remember hearing about it during our lunch, our fellowship lunch, and just like, and now that we're here and there's new projects, I think that is something that I think, you know, if you were to leave, I think YMCA, it would be a huge loss to YMCA Exeter, because you're great visionaries and you work really great together, and you're stubborn and you're persistent, which is, I think, what is needed in the role. And I just think, like, how it's just grown so quickly in the 8 years, I think, it's obviously God, but also I think it's just a credit to you both, just, wanting to carry out that mission and just being the visionaries and just having your trust in God. I think that's pretty impressive.
Thank you.
That's all right.
So now we've said
that's
that.
the nicest thing I'm ever going to say to them now for the next, and then I'll say my next
Excellent.
nice thing in 8 years' time.
Excellent.
Right.
So we've just talked about COVID, and now it's obviously a challenge, to put it lightly. There's a lot of talk about the state of economy over the last few years. How do you feel that has or is impacting the YMCA? And what are the plans in place to kind of keep the YMCA safe?
You can tell this was a finance staff question.
yeah. Was this for you?
It was not. It was not from our finance manager.
Well, I think first and foremost, we've been very cautious. Whilst you say that we've been visionary, we've also been very cautious with how we've done that. We wanted to make sure that as a small local charity, we don't get hit with great interest rates because we've got borrowing up to the hilt. Like, we've kept our borrowing very low and really focused in on fundraising. Even in the development of Sidwell's, I remember the conversations with Homes England, who are the government arm that they give the vast amount of funding, and having arguments with them where they're saying, just make the rents higher and take out more borrowing. Like, but the purpose of this accommodation is for it to be completely affordable for our young people, so we can't borrow more because that then sits on the rents. Like, that's counterintuitive to what we're doing. So I think we're constantly thinking about what's the impact on the beneficiary, like how do what we do impact them on a day-to-day life? How do we make sure that their homes are truly affordable so they can actually live good quality lives and not all of your money going into your accommodation? On the organisation itself, we've just moved for the new budget coming up to make sure that we're back to being a real living wage employer. We want to make sure that all of our staff are paid fairly, so that's not just the minimum, that's what's recommended by a non-government arm to pay staff. We think our staff are our greatest asset, and they're the ones that make the work happen, so we want to make sure that they're not struggling on a day-to-day as well.
Nice.
Anything to add?
Did that answer? Obviously, we're going to give away any trade secrets about
how we do that.
and stuff. But I mean, diversity of income stream. One of the great things that we've always said is that we won't put like all our eggs in one basket, which is a old saying. But also what happens sometimes is that you can kind of sell everything that you do to one purpose, and then you are really kind of limited by what that person then wants you to do.
Yeah.
And that means you'll get situations where people come along that don't necessarily fit into that group, and you can't help them. And we never really wanted to be in that place, so we diversify all of our income streams, and we make sure that we set some stuff aside that's completely charitable. So for those people that donate to us, this is really important to know. You are the ones that make that happen. So you fund the bit that no one else would be willing to fund often. So if we sometimes, if you have a young person, they come with some kind of funding package, and that package comes to an end because of some government change or because they some reason don't now meet a new threshold level, all of their money could disappear. And some providers at that point would go, well, sorry, we don't get paid to look after you anymore, you have to leave. And we will never, ever, ever be in a place where we will make that decision. We will never do that. And it's great to just be able to go, no, because we charitably fundraise, we're just going to stay here. And even though they're not getting funded anymore, we're going to look after them and nothing's going to change. And so that's always been part of our business model. And everything else is probably down to God's provision, to be honest.
Yeah, no,
Amazing.
that's fair. So if you could take a 6-month secondment to a YMCA somewhere else in the world, where would you choose and why?
Oh, I know this one.
I didn't write this one.
I've done my research on this one. That's
Oh,
fine.
no, that's it.
Oh.
And this is what you're planning to do?
I've been
This sounds like an
skiing for years and
exclusive.
never got there.
Oh, yeah.
There's one up in the Rockies in Colorado. It's a camp, so you can go and book there. But it's right up in the mountains, so up in the snow, and the bears walk up and the deers come up into the cabins, log cabins, and you can go skiing and all sorts of stuff. So I would definitely do 6 months there.
With your feet in Exeter and staying in Exeter and not leaving Exeter,
Yeah.
what inspires you to come to work every day?
Inspired.
Why am I here?
Do you want to come to
What
work?
gets you out of,
It's getting out of the house, to be honest. The kids are just a nightmare. No, it always comes back to the impact the organisation has, and like the biggest transition for me in my role over the years was like from going from day to day working with young people and seeing the difference there and then from what I've done to now being in a leadership capacity and actually thinking because of the leadership I enable more people to have that same impact. So therefore, whilst I might not sit on a day-to-day basis, if I turn up and do a good job and I lead my team well, my team in turn do a really great job for young people. So that's what kind of drives me.
So I think, and this isn't like a judgment on church or the way that the church is or people's Christians' life at all, but just for me, and when I read the Bible and think about how early Christians lived out their faith, it didn't look a lot like it does in Western culture. So I think one of the amazing things about being in this role is that it just enables me to kind of live out my faith on a day-to-day basis, which, if I was working somewhere else, I might be too lazy to actually do. Do you know what I mean? I might go, well, Sundays, go to church, every other day with Jesus, I read that, and that would be fine,
And that's it.
But this stops me from doing that. This forces me to engage with God on a daily basis, just to answer those questions of what do I do now, or how do I cope with this, or amazing, that's amazing, give thanks. And I think, I don't know, I feel as Christians maybe we are called more into this as part of our Christian life. It is a vocation, much more than it is a career. And I think that's what gets me out of bed every morning, because hey, it's good for me. I need to walk that. And I think that's really, for me anyway, that's how I believe Jesus called us to be and live.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah, well, that's basically it. So thank you so much for answering our questions.
Thanks for having us.
It's been a blast. It's been a bit chaotic, so we apologise at home. But we hope, it's been informative for the listeners about kind of what's coming, into the future projects-wise, and also who you are and what you do. So thank you very much.
Well, there you go, folks. That was our season finale that you've just watched with our wonderful guests, our joint CEOs, Si and Gareth. We did film this on a different day, hence we're not that good at outfit changes. We're not that quick. And I just want to take my hat off to you, Andy. So to give people that are listening or watching at home some context, Si and Gareth, gosh, they are chatters, aren't they? They chat.
I think the interview that we end up showing is going to be about just over half an hour, maybe about 35 minutes. The overall uncut footage is like over an hour.
Over an hour, yeah. You thought sometimes this is carnage. Bring Simon Gareth into a room. It was a good laugh and I had fun, but yeah, I wish that we could, show the full footage. But some of it doesn't make sense, and some of it is just it's just a bit chaotic. So thank you, Andy, for doing such a wonderful job in cutting that, because that was no easy task. So that is it for our season. Season 2's over.
Yeah, we'll be back in
The summer.
In the summer, in a month or two's time.
Yeah.
So we're hopefully going to have some new kind of segments, some new music.
Yeah, so
Quite
watch
good.
this space for season 3. We'll see you all guys soon, and thank you so much for listening and watching. Take care.
Yeah.